We never hear people say, I wish I would have waited longer before I started the infinite banking concept. We do hear people say frequently, oh, I wish I would have started this earlier. So that begs the question, how do you get started with the infinite banking concept?
Maybe that's a question you would like to know the answer to. Maybe it's a question you would like your children to know the answer to. How do you get started with the infinite banking concept?
We're going to answer that question today, and we're going to answer it in detail because people are in a vast array of financial circumstances. Getting started with the infinite banking concept will look different for everyone.
That's really true, John. And Michelle, you wrote about that in our first book, Prescription for Wealth. You've got to start where you're at right now, and everyone is in a different position in life financially.
I think of a paint by number. When you get a paint by number, say it's going to be of a sunrise, then all the number ones, they get painted yellow. All the number twos get painted orange. All the number threes, blue. All the number fours, red. And when you're done with your paint by number, your picture of a sunset is going to look like the picture of a sunset of anyone else who had that paint by number set. And when we're talking about the infinite banking concept, we're not talking about paint by number. We want to get you good materials. We want to get you good tools, brushes, paints. We want to help you with technique. But your picture, whatever you decide to paint, is going to look different than anyone else's picture.
Creating sustainable wealth is what the infinite banking concept helps us to do. And that does look different for everyone. What did it look like for us as we got started with infinite banking?
Well, long before we started with the infinite banking, we realized that we wanted to have sustainable finances, not just something that was put away that we couldn't touch. And so we began in real estate, and we started building a real estate portfolio. But we realized that the way we were starting, it was just like our money was always going back into the real estate, and it never was really changing our lifestyle or allowing us to do the things that we wanted to do. I remember paying off our second house with cash, and then just shortly after that, wishing I could pull the money back out of the walls because cash flow was down. And that's not a sustainable thing when we put all of our money into one entity. Even though that entity might be a very good investment, it doesn't necessarily give us the freedom financially that we were looking for, nor the sustainability. So
it was a good investment, but maybe not for you at that time.
That's correct. So when we read The Infinite Banking Concept or Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, I realized, whoa, this is a key element that I've been missing. This is what we have been trying to do, but didn't have the tool to do it. And the life insurance element of that was something that I had ignored because I had been told just buy term and invest the difference. But that doesn't give us the sustainability, nor does it give us the financial freedom that we now have with the life insurance.
Well, one of those things on the journey is that you had done some studies on trading commodities. You had gone to seminars, you had read books, and then we went to implement that, but we didn't have the cash cushion that comes with the infinite banking concept and whole life insurance. We didn't have that cash cushion. So we were in a difficult position when the roller coaster of the market was happening and we didn't have enough cash to really sustain the position we were in. That was not sustainable.
Now, we were in a good financial position compared to some other people we knew. We were saving $30,000 a year. And so when we understood that, life insurance, this whole life insurance product is really where we should be keeping our money instead of in a 401k where we can't access it, or in a savings account where we lose the interest on it when we use it. It was relatively easy just to switch where we were parking our money. And then we were able to start to leverage that money without hindering our growth on it. And we were able to have the freedom to buy pianos for the kids, to buy a bigger car for our family, to take vacations in different parts of the world that we'd never been able to do. And so that's the type of financial freedom that comes when you're building sustainability by using participating whole life insurance.
Something I like about your story is you didn't wait to get started until you found the perfect vehicle. You were making decisions about what to do with your money wisely. And then if the decisions didn't turn out right, you were making them right along the way.
Well, I love that quote that says, we don't always have the ability to make the right decision, but we always have the ability to make our decisions right. And when you think about the astronauts, when they went to the moon, they were off course much of the time. They constantly had to make adjustments to their course so that they would end up on the moon.
Even somebody just going down to the local grocery store, if they leave their hands off the steering wheel the whole time, they're not going to get to the grocery store.
That's right. Or what if there's traffic or an accident? You might have to alter the course that you were planning to take.
Probably
But the
will.
end result is the grocery store. And if you left within plenty of time, you're going to arrive a little bit late, but you're still going to be on target.
Being able to do that takes a different kind of thinking than most people do. You know, we have friends that came here from other countries, and they said when they found out that the tests in college here were multiple choice, they relaxed and said, oh, that's going to be easy. Because in other countries, you have to think differently to take a test than you do in this country. You have to write essays, you have to answer complicated questions, and you don't have to just guess at what answer is going to be on there. So Americans have been kind of dumbed down in our education process to just A, B, C, or D. And we don't really stop and analyze what's going on in life.
What
and
are
be
the
able to
options
think through
available
it.
here?
And sometimes, you know, when you go in and take one of those A, B, C, or D questions, which I've taken a lot of going through my national boards and state boards and, 8 years of college, the real answer isn't in the A, B, C, or D. So being able to think outside the box and express yourself is much more valuable and powerful. And that's true in finances too. When people will really sit down and think about where they're at and where they want to go, now they're thinking so that it's going to change their actions, and they're going to probably do things a lot different than the people around them, and they're going to get to achieve the goals that they've set.
I think of this book, Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss, and we've used this as a graduation gift, kind of as a starting point to think about all the things you could do as an adult, all the decisions that you can make. And I like a few lines I'd like to read out of here. Simple it's not, I'm afraid you will find, for a mind maker upper to make up his mind. Sometimes it's hard to make up our minds on decisions that we have in front of us and what we'll do. But an advantage of making up your mind is that everyone else is just waiting around. Hopefully that's not you. But people are waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or the phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting around for a yes or a no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone's just waiting for the fish to bite, or waiting for wind to fly a kite, or waiting around for Friday night, or waiting, perhaps, for their Uncle Jake. Or a pot to boil, or a bed or break, or a string of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone's just waiting, and you can wait around, or you can take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and make a decision. And then when you make a decision, as if it wasn't quite right, you just make adjustments to that decision.
We work with people who have waited a lot of their life, sometimes into their 50s and 60s, before they're doing anything about their financial situation. Those people have a limited set of options that they have to work with. We work with other people who are just starting out financially. So maybe they're in their late teens, early 20s, and they're getting started with this right away. It's wonderful to see, because what they're starting, the foundation that they're starting today, is going to be such an asset for them along the way. And we work with a lot of people that are in their early to mid 40s. It seems like right about that time, maybe some of the other financial things have been straightened out in their life, and they're starting to think about the future, realizing this isn't going to last forever. We need to prepare for it, whether it's retirement or whether it's their golden years. If they plan to continue working at what they do, they're thinking in that direction. And so we work with a lot of people in those areas.
Making decisions is really important. And making decisive decisions is really important when we're working with finances. I remember Nelson Nash used to say that everybody knows the price of everything and the cost of nothing. And when we're trying to make a decision about how do we start a policy, what can we afford to do, what's going to be comfortable, affordable, if we can say, well, I can afford this new car because the payment is only, $700 a month, I can do that. But people don't translate that and say, well, I can afford $700 a month very comfortably to save for my future. It's a different way of thinking. Instead of having it now and paying for it, if we'll save up now, then we can live like nobody else in the future instead of just having to live like everybody else right now.
So when you're talking about saving comfortably, so you use the example of $700, we could, make that any amount.
Sure.
You're not saying it's comfortable, easy peasy, no problem. You're saying you don't have to take a second job or a third job to make that 700 happen.
That's correct.
Or that you're maybe limiting some in your lifestyle, but you're not going without food, you're not going without gas, you're not cutting your mortgage short or going defunct on your other obligations. It is comfortable for you to still make all your other obligations.
It is. And people justify to themselves, oh, yes, I can afford this car payment, or I can afford the new sofa payment, or I can afford the new house payment, when actually they should be thinking along those same lines and what can I afford to save? Because savings is the essence of the infinite banking concept. If we can't save, there's nothing to leverage.
This brings up the question, what size premium do you need to get started with the infinite banking concept? And we often talk about the 10-20-70 principle on this show, where you take 100% of your income, you take 70% of it, and that's for your lifestyle. You take 20% of it, and that's the maximum that should go toward debt payments. You take 10% of your income, and that should be the minimum that you're saving. If you don't have debt payments, a lot of debt payments to other people, hey, you might be saving 30%, the 10 and the 20 put together, still living on the 70%. That tends to be a very balanced model for a lot of people to get started. So when we're looking at starting the infinite banking concept and how much premium you're putting into a new life insurance policy, we like to start with the 10% that you should be keeping.
We guide people in, suggest that they do that. But I've had people say, oh, I can't do the 10%. Could I just do 8%? Well, of course, you're in charge. Do something.
Yeah.
Get started.
Get started.
And here's the beauty of the infinite banking concept. If we apply the 10-20-70 principle to that, down the road, you won't have to live on 70% of your income, and you'll be able to even keep more of that for the future when you can't work as long and as hard as you can work right now.
When we get back from the break, we're going to talk about how to have long-term success with the infinite banking concept. Long-term results are exciting. We'll be right back.
Do you have a life insurance policy, or are you thinking about purchasing a life insurance policy for the infinite banking concept? At McPhee Insurance, we specialize in designing participating whole life insurance policies that work with the infinite banking concept. But we also review policies. So if you have an existing whole life policy, or you're thinking about purchasing a policy from another agent, we can review that. We review hundreds of policies. It is well worth the $75 for an independent look at that policy so that you can have the peace of mind that it's going to work exactly like you want it to for the infinite banking concept.
I was 14 years old when we learned about using the infinite banking concept. I couldn't own my own life insurance policy yet, but mom and dad started policies on us kids, me and my siblings. And as we grew up, as we worked for the neighbors, I did yard work for the neighbors, did other odd jobs, sold some software models as I got a little bit older. I could save money and I could put them into the policies that mom and dad had started and taken policy loans on. I could keep track of how much money I had put in there. And when I took a policy loan, I had to keep track of how much to repay that policy loan so that the money would be back there for me. Eventually, mom and dad took policy loans for everything they had paid in premiums into those policies, and then they gifted those policies to me. So now I had a place to put my savings going forward. Those policies have been such a great gift. I paid the premium on one of them the other day, and the cash value grew by 22% more than what I had paid in premium. It's a great asset as well as a good savings vehicle.
Well, it was a great opportunity for us to be able to purchase those policies for you children, get you started, great financial gift. But if you don't have the policy designed properly, you're not going to get the kind of cash value in a policy that you're wanting to use for the infinite banking concept. So if you're thinking about getting a policy with high cash value, with the kind of growth John is talking about, call our office. We can help you. We can help design that for you so that you're getting the results that you want.
So I hear you both talking about policies. If you never get a policy, you'll never get that 22%.
That's right. And this is something you used to talk about as we were teaching people the infinite banking concept. You said you could do this without a life insurance policy, but why would you want to give up
That rate of
that
return.
type of growth, the dividends that the insurance company is willing to pay? Having the policy is like the extra edge. It's the icing on the cake that helps you get ahead faster financially.
So there's nowhere that you know of, and you're a registered investment advisor, but there's no place you know of where you could have paid those premium dollars and got a 22% increase.
Not that I would know would be guaranteed.
There you go.
John, you mentioned earlier in the podcast that some people procrastinate. And I was just talking to a gentleman the other day that 8 years ago, he started following our website and our materials that we put out about the infinite banking concept. And he said, I should have started this a long time ago. And you have a story, Michelle, about one of your friends in school that just never got around to starting.
Well, my friend Shelley, we took shop class together, and we had to make what they called a trinket chest. It was out of wood. There were several wood pieces, and we had a certain way we had to put them together. And Shelley did actually get started with her trinket chest, but then she would always leave it and go help the next person, set their pieces and their glue and, help them know how to put it together. And she'd go back to hers, and her pieces would break, and she'd have to get new wood. And one thing after another, she always had problems with her trinket chest, but everyone around, she had helped all of them put their trinket chests together. And, even one time her trinket chest was stolen. Well, she finally had to go on to other projects in shop. She never, ever finished her own trinket chest.
And we have people that refer to us. We've helped their friends get the infinite banking concept going by getting them started with life insurance. They have never moved forward, and that is sad to us.
I think maybe some people don't move forward because they don't understand it all. But you don't have to understand it all to get started.
Well, John, I think another reason is they're concerned that their own financial picture might not qualify for them to be able to get a policy so they can do infinite banking. Sometimes people know, they can point someone in the right direction, but they think somehow their finances don't qualify. And if you're in that position, I'd say just call us. We're easy to talk to. We're going to find out what your situation is and help you get through your situation so you can be on your way going to where you want to be.
I like the story of Alex in this case, because he eventually wants to finance business expenses and business expansion with his life insurance, but he didn't understand it all quite yet. So he wanted to start small, and he started with a gift for his son. And we actually recorded a video on this just the other day where you helped him go through the policy loan process and how his options on repaying the policy loan. Going through the process helped him learn the process. So now when he's ready for the bigger expenses and purchases, he'll be ready to handle those, and he understands how the process works.
So in that video, we talked about how to start a policy loan because Alex had already purchased the policy for his son. And then we talked about restructuring the repayment schedule. And that was a real eye-opener for Alex because it drove home the point that he was in control of those repayment schedules, not some bank or finance company that's going to come take his son's toy away if he doesn't, repay the loan. The liberty, the freedom that comes with the infinite banking concept is beyond compare.
So this is kind of like what we're talking about when I said or talked earlier about the paint by number set. We're putting that paint by number set aside. That's traditional finances. We're showing Alex how to use that brush, how to use different techniques to get the results in the painting that he wants.
A paint by number picture, when it's done even, it always looks kind of rigid. Oh, here's a color, there's a color. There's no fading, there's no hue variance, there's no, feathering. I know when you paint, Michelle, you're talking about feather. I don't understand all that. But when it gets done, it looks real rather than like someone put a splotch of color here and here and here. And that's what a lot of people's finances look like because they have no individuality in that. It's just they're trying to duplicate what someone else has done. The infinite banking concept isn't a duplication. There's some basic groundwork that has to be done. You have to be educated about how the policy works. You have to be willing to work hard to put money away and save it. But then a lot of the infinite banking concept is having faith that the future can be better than today if we learn how to leverage our savings and work with them to generate more cash flow and create the financial lifestyle that we really want to live.
And it's using your imagination. That video we did with Alex, we're going to link that in the description below. But we had a caller just this week say, I watched that video and now I'm wondering about my situation. We got to talk about that a little bit.
Alex got started though. He didn't understand everything, but he got started. He's in a better situation than somebody who waited 8 years as they tried to understand everything.
I remember when we first started teaching this concept to other people, I had a prospect from California call and say, okay, I want to do this, but before I do it, I want you to show me what it's going to look exactly like in 10 years. And I remember going to the computer and going into Excel and taking loans and paying them back and trying to demonstrate that to him. And then I saw, wait a second, this is an impossibility. There is no way that I can predict the future. Mm-hmm. Because how many loans is it going to take? How many loans is it going to take from what he's repaid back? And it becomes infinite.
You can show him an example of what it could potentially look like in 10 years. But yeah, there's so many variables.
Yeah. What if he alters a loan repayment, the amount of a loan repayment? What if he pays it off sooner or takes a little longer? All those variables come together. He is thinking like a paint by number. He wants you to paint the picture so he can see what it looks like, but he's not taking into account that you could paint all kinds of things or that he could paint all kinds of things.
This goes back to a previous podcast where we talked about economic value added. And when companies started looking at the cost of their own capital, they exploded in profitability. And the infinite banking concept is that. It's not the traditional, what rate of return am I earning in this policy? Even though you're earning a 22% return on your premiums right now, John, that's great. But all the capital that you've recovered, that you have spent, is even greater. And that's what the infinite banking concept is. And it's very hard to measure until you're in the throes of it and you're saying, wait, I have that pickup truck I bought and I've got all the money plus all the interest I paid sitting right there to use over again.
It's an asset that works alongside of you.
It is.
You have a good way of explaining to somebody that hasn't purchased a policy yet, what are the steps for them to get a good policy for infinite banking?
Well, first of all, they have to sit alone by themselves and decide, what is it that I need to be saving that I'm not? Or what am I saving right now that in a place that's not being efficient for building the financial lifestyle that I'm looking to build? And when we come up with that number, then we're able here to take that number and produce the highest cash value policy that's possible so they don't have to wait around 4 or 5 or sometimes even 10 years before they have any cash value that they can start leveraging. And it's a very simple process, but it's very individualized. So it can't just say you do this, this, and this, and there you go. You have to work with someone like someone in the McPhee Insurance Agency to be able to know that you're getting the highest cash value policy that's possible for you so that you're not just wasting your money on insurance.
Well, sometimes people call us and they're not exactly sure what amount that they want to use for their premium. And that's no problem. I tell them that you will show them an example, something fairly close to what they're thinking, and they'll be able to see how the numbers are projected from that. So they'll be able to see the guaranteed values. You'll walk them through how they could use that. And then they'll be able to decide if they want to make an adjustment to go up or to go down. They are going to decide on it before we get a policy issued. And even if they go into underwriting, not quite exactly sure what amount they want. Once we have an underwriting decision about their health, then we can make adjustments and they can decide what they want to do.
Sometimes after you take an application for somebody, they'll tell you, well, that was easy. They were expecting it would be harder than it actually was. And once they have the policy, accessing the money is easy as well. It's not like taking a loan from a conventional bank. You help people take policy loans all the time. What's the process for them to do that?
Oh, they usually contact us. Sometimes they ask us how much is available. We look that up for them. They can sign a form giving authorization to have their loan deposited to their bank account. They could get a check mailed to them if they want. And then once we have that form on file, then oftentimes they can just tell us over the phone or by email that they would like another loan. And they can also set up loan repayments so the insurance company can draft every month if they want to. There's options, and we discuss that when they're ready at that stage.
I think one of the biggest things that comes up when we're talking about what are we going to pay for the life insurance, because we work with such a varying range of people and occupations and economic levels. If you say, okay, you need to pay $5,000 a year, someone might go, oh, that's a lot of money. But if they're making $20 an hour, that's about 1 hour a day that they're donating to this. And they wouldn't think twice about spending 1 hour a day on lunch, maybe even more than that on lunch and coffee every day. But again, it goes back to the way we're thinking.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the people that say $5,000 a month. Well, that's what I'll be putting towards premium. So it's all different levels. It depends on the paints that you have, the tools that you have, the resources you have,
and what you want to accomplish.
What kind of picture you're going to paint.
We'll continue this discussion next time, talking about how do you know when to expand your infinite banking system? How do you perpetuate this wealth onto your children and teach the next generation financial principles? As we wrap up this podcast episode and all the exciting things we're talking about here, don't lose sight of the fact that the first step to getting any of this is getting started. If you don't get started, you don't get any of the benefits.
Here on this paper, I have an exponential curve drawn. When you start with a policy, you start the early years. There's not a lot of exponential growth here. But when you wait to get started with a life insurance policy, you don't cut off these early years of starting the policy. You cut off the exponential growth that happens later on.
If you haven't subscribed for the Wealth Talks podcast on YouTube, you can subscribe for free. Just go to the Wealth Talks podcast on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. Not only will you get the weekly podcast, you'll also get little clips with valuable nuggets of information throughout the week. 2025 is going to be an exceptional year, I think. Make sure you subscribe.